Think about the last time your vision got worse. Maybe you noticed it while reading a menu, or driving at night, or trying to read the small print on a bottle. So you made an appointment, sat in a dark room, read some letters off a chart, and walked out with a stronger prescription. That was probably the entire conversation. Nobody asked whether anything could be done to actually help your eyes get stronger. Nobody mentioned that your eyes are surrounded by real muscles that respond to real training. Nobody brought up the fact that there are exercises, simple, free, 3 minutes a day, that directly target those muscles and the tissue behind them. I am Dr. Arthur Vance, and today I am going to give you exactly what that appointment never did. Before we get to the exercises themselves, I want to make sure you understand what is actually happening inside your eye, because once you see it clearly, the exercises make complete sense. Each of your eyes is moved and controlled by 6 muscles on the outside of the eyeball. These are called the extraocular muscles, and their job is to physically move your eye in every direction: left, right, up, down, and at angles. 2 of them handle all your side-to-side movement. 2 handle up and down. 2 more handle the fine rotational adjustments that keep your vision steady when you tilt your head. All 6 fire in coordinated sequences every time you shift your gaze, working together as a team. But those 6 outer muscles are not the only muscles running your visual system. Inside the eye itself, there is a muscle called the ciliary muscle. This one has a very specific and critical job. It physically changes the shape of your lens depending on whether you need to focus on something close or something far away. When you look at something nearby, the ciliary muscle squeezes, the lens rounds up, and your eye gains more focusing power. When you look into the distance, the ciliary muscle relaxes, the lens flattens out, and your focus shifts. This constant back-and-forth adjustment is called accommodation, and it happens automatically hundreds of times a day without you ever thinking about it. Add in 2 more muscles that control how much your pupil opens and closes in response to light, and you end up with a minimum of 8 muscles per eye, 16 total for both eyes combined. 16 muscles that respond to training, that weaken from lack of use, and that the vast majority of Americans never deliberately exercise a single day in their lives. Here is why that matters so much after 50. Modern life has put almost all of those 16 muscles into partial retirement. Think about how your eyes actually move throughout a typical day. You look at your phone, you look at your computer, you watch television, you glance at someone across the room. In almost all of these activities, your eyes are working in an extremely narrow range of movement. Forward, slightly to the side, maybe up and down a little. The muscles responsible for moving your eyes to the outer edges of their range, for coordinated rotational tracking, for rapid shifts between near and far focus, barely get used at all. Day after day, year after year, those muscles sit in the same shortened, underworked position. And like any muscle in your body that stops being challenged, they gradually stiffen, shorten, and lose their strength. The connective tissue around them tightens. And the downstream effect of all that tension is something most people never connect to their eyesight: reduced blood flow to the very tissue that makes vision possible. There is one more thing I want to address before we go through the exercises, because it is important for setting the right expectations. You may have heard claims that doing one simple movement can dramatically restore your vision overnight. I want to be direct with you. That is not how your body works. Your visual system involves 16 muscles working together in a highly coordinated way. Targeting one movement plane with one exercise cannot produce comprehensive improvement any more than training one finger can make you a skilled pianist. What actually produces results is a systematic approach that addresses the outer muscles, the internal focusing muscle, and the circulation and tissue health of the eye as a whole. That is exactly what these 3 exercises do. No miracles, just good physiology applied consistently. The first exercise is one I call the full sweep. Here is how it works. Without moving your head at all, look as far as you possibly can to the right. Take your eye all the way to the absolute edge of its range in that direction. Now, while holding your gaze at that outer edge, slowly sweep your eyes in a wide, smooth arc from the far right all the way over to the far left, and then back again. The movement should be slow and fully controlled, not a quick flick back and forth, but a deliberate wide sweep along the outer boundary of your visual field. Go as far as your eye can reach in both directions. When you do this for the first time, you will almost certainly feel a pulling or stretching sensation on the side opposite to the direction you are moving. That sensation tells you something important. It tells you that the muscles on that side have been sitting in a shortened, stiffened state for a very long time. Research suggests that for most adults living a modern lifestyle, the range of eye movement actually used in daily life represents only about 10 to 15% of the full range those muscles are capable of. The remaining 85 to 90% of the available arc sits mostly unused. When muscles are chronically underused, they shorten and stiffen. The connective tissue around them tightens. And when those tight muscles surround your eyeball, they actually press on it. Your eyeball is not completely rigid. It has walls, internal fluid, and pressure. And when the surrounding muscles are chronically tense, they create a low level of compression on the eye. That compression reduces blood flow to the retina, which is the thin layer of tissue at the back of your eye that converts light into the signals your brain reads as vision. The retina is neural tissue, essentially a piece of your brain located inside your eye, and it is extremely sensitive to even small reductions in its blood supply. Less blood flow means less oxygen and fewer nutrients reaching the tissue responsible for your sight. Visual sharpness declines as a result. When you perform the full sweep exercise with maximum range in both directions, you are doing something more than just stretching stiff muscles. You are actively releasing the compression those muscles have been putting on your eyeball. As that tension releases, blood flow to the retina improves. The tissue gets better nutrition and oxygen, and most people notice a real change in visual clarity within just 1 or 2 repetitions. If you commit to this exercise daily, the discomfort at the outer edges of your range typically decreases noticeably within the first week. By 2 to 3 weeks, it is usually gone. That disappearance is a sign that your extraocular muscles have returned to a healthier, more relaxed resting tone and are no longer locked in a state of chronic shortening. The second exercise uses gentle vibration, and I want to explain the reasoning behind it before I walk you through the technique, because the reasoning is what makes it make sense. In professional massage and physical therapy, there are several ways to apply therapeutic touch to the body. You can use smooth gliding strokes, deeper friction, compression, or vibration. Of all of these, vibration is the only one that transmits energy deep into tissue in the form of a traveling wave. It does not just affect the surface layer it touches. It moves through the full thickness of whatever structure it contacts, including layers that cannot be directly reached by surface pressure. This is why vibration techniques are specifically used when the goal is to reach deep tissue. Now apply that principle to the eye. The eyeball is roughly the size of a ping-pong ball. Inside it, you have a gel-like substance filling most of the space that maintains the eye's shape. You have 3 concentric layers making up the wall of the eye: the tough outer white coat, the middle layer that is packed with blood vessels and feeds the eye, and the retina on the inside. All of this is surrounded by the outer muscles and wrapped in connective tissue. If you want to benefit all of those structures at once, improving circulation in the blood vessel layer, relieving tension in the surrounding connective tissue, and normalizing fluid movement inside the eye, surface pressure is not the right approach. In fact, pressing directly on the eye can actually be harmful because it temporarily raises the pressure inside the eye, which in some people can be dangerous. Gentle vibration, applied correctly, is a completely different story. It stimulates circulation in the small blood vessels, promotes fluid exchange in the eye's tissues, and gently mobilizes the surrounding connective tissue without generating any harmful pressure spikes. Here is the technique. Place one fingertip at the inner corner of one eye, right where your upper and lower eyelid meet near your nose. There is solid bone just underneath there. Place a second fingertip at the outer corner of the same eye, where again there is solid bone just beneath the surface. Both fingers should rest primarily on the bony edges around your eye socket, not on the soft tissue of the eye itself. This is important. It prevents you from accidentally applying pressure directly to the eyeball. Now, using the very soft pad of your fingertips, make the lightest possible contact with your closed eyelid, not a press. Just a gentle touch, barely the weight of the fingers resting there. From that position, create a fine, rapid vibration, small movements, fast frequency, and maintain it for about 20 to 40 seconds without increasing the pressure at all. Then slowly lift your fingers away, pause for 5 seconds, and open your eyes. Most people notice immediately that their vision seems slightly sharper. Colors may appear a little more vivid. Detail at near or distance may have a clearer quality. This is not imagination. What has happened is improved circulation in the blood vessel layer of the eye, relaxation of the tension in the surrounding muscles and connective tissue, and a gentle normalization of the fluid dynamics inside the eye, all in under a minute. I want to share something from my years of practice that I think is genuinely worth your attention. Over the course of my career, I have come across a small number of patients over the age of 70 who wore absolutely no corrective lenses. Not reading glasses, not distance glasses, nothing. Clear, functional vision well into their 8th decade of life. That is genuinely rare. Age-related changes to the lens, the retina, and the internal focusing muscle are expected and nearly universal in the American population. So what was different about these people? When I asked each of them about their daily habits, without a single exception, they all reported doing some form of eye exercise consistently. Every day, for years, treated as a non-negotiable part of their routine, the same way brushing teeth is non-negotiable. Not something they did when they remembered, something they simply did every day. And every one of them was also mentally sharp, alert, clear in conversation, quick in their thinking. Whether disciplined eye exercise contributed directly to that mental sharpness, or whether mentally sharp people are simply more likely to maintain disciplined habits, is hard to separate cleanly. But the visual cortex, the part of the brain that processes what you see, occupies roughly 30% of the total surface area of the brain's outer layer. It is the single largest sensory processing region in the human brain. Keeping it actively engaged through regular, complex visual training is not a trivial thing. It generates real, sustained neural activity in a significant portion of the brain. I have observed the connection between consistent eye training and preserved mental clarity often enough that I no longer consider it a coincidence. The third exercise targets the ciliary muscle directly, the internal focusing muscle, and it is the most relevant one for the kind of vision loss most Americans over 50 experience first. The medical term for age-related near vision loss is presbyopia. It is what happens when, typically starting in the early to mid-40s, people begin holding reading material farther and farther away from their face just to bring it into focus. It eventually affects almost everyone, and the standard response is reading glasses or progressive lenses. The explanation patients are usually given is that the lens inside the eye hardens with age and loses its flexibility, making it impossible to focus up close. This is partially accurate. The lens does become less elastic over time. But here is the part that rarely gets mentioned. The ciliary muscle, the muscle that squeezes the lens to change its shape, actually retains its ability to contract even in people with presbyopia. Research has shown that even in presbyopic patients, the ciliary muscle continues to fire in response to near-focus effort. It is the lens that stops fully responding to the muscle's squeeze, not the muscle that stops trying. This matters because it means the ciliary muscle can still be trained and maintained, and that keeping it strong and active from an early stage may help slow the rate at which accommodation declines. The basic version of ciliary muscle training that most eye doctors know about involves holding your finger close to your face, moving it toward you until the image starts to blur, then pulling it back out to clarity and repeating. This works. It is a real training stimulus for the ciliary muscle, but it only loads the muscle in one direction, straight forward along your line of sight. Here is a more effective version of the same exercise. Bring your finger toward your face until the image just begins to go soft, right at the edge of where you can still keep it clear. Hold it at that distance. Now, instead of simply moving it straight toward you and away from you, begin moving it slowly in a wide circle, upward on one side, downward on the other, all the way around. Keep your eyes tracking your fingertip and try to maintain the clearest focus you can as it moves through that arc. The ciliary muscle now has to do something much more demanding than simply contracting and relaxing in a straight line. It has to maintain near focus, while your eye is also tracking a moving target that is changing position in multiple directions simultaneously. After a full circle, reverse the direction. Then start adding distance variation. Let your finger drift slightly closer through one part of the arc and slightly farther through another. What you are creating is a multi-directional, constantly varying training load on the ciliary muscle, a significantly richer and more effective stimulus than the simple linear version. The practical challenge with any exercise program for the eyes is not learning how to do the movements. It is maintaining the habit long enough to see results. The most effective solution I have found, both in my own routine and with patients, is what I call habit anchoring. Attaching the new exercise to something you already do automatically every single day. The exercise takes 3 minutes or less. That means it can attach to your morning coffee, to the time your computer takes to start up, to a few minutes before you get out of bed, to the moment you sit down after dinner. It does not matter which anchor you choose, as long as it is genuinely daily and genuinely reliable. 3 minutes of these exercises done consistently every single day produces results that no once-a-week 45-minute session ever will. Consistency is the entire game here. Now, I want to address something that most people pursuing better vision overlook completely, and overlooking it limits their results significantly. Exercise is a biological signal. Your body responds to that signal by adapting and improving. But the quality of that adaptation depends entirely on what raw materials your body has available to work with. If your body is running low on key nutrients, the response to exercise is a fraction of what it could be. The most important nutritional factor for eye health, and the one most commonly deficient in Americans, especially those living in northern states, is vitamin D. Vitamin D plays a direct role in the function of the light-detecting cells in your retina. It has a well-documented relationship with age-related macular degeneration, which is the leading cause of irreversible central vision loss in adults over 50. And research increasingly links low vitamin D levels to faster progression of nearsightedness. If you are doing eye exercises every day but your vitamin D level is very low, you are working against yourself. Getting your level tested is a simple blood draw. If you are deficient, correcting it through supplementation is inexpensive, safe at appropriate doses, and beneficial not just for your eyes, but for your immune system, your bone density, your heart health, and your mood. Ask your doctor to check it at your next visit. There is one more area I want to cover that almost never comes up in a standard eye appointment, but that I have observed matter repeatedly in clinical practice. The liver and the eyes are connected more directly than most people realize. When liver function deteriorates significantly, one of the first visible signs is yellowing of the whites of the eyes, a finding called scleral icterus that appears in the eyes before it becomes visible anywhere else on the body. This is taught in every medical school in America. It is not folk medicine, it is standard clinical examination. The practical implication is this: the overall health of your liver affects the metabolic environment your eyes are functioning in. And the two biggest dietary threats to liver health are fried and heavily processed foods. When food is cooked at very high temperatures in oil, chemical compounds are produced that the liver has to neutralize. When you eat heavily processed meats, the prepackaged, preserved, artificially colored kind, the preservatives, nitrites, and synthetic additives in them also have to be processed by the liver. The more consistently your diet loads the liver with these substances, the less functional capacity it has left over for everything else it is responsible for. Reducing fried food and heavily processed meat from your regular diet is a legitimate step toward better overall eye health, not just better general health. For more direct liver support, milk thistle has one of the strongest evidence bases of any natural compound in liver research. The active ingredient is called silymarin, and it works through well-documented mechanisms. It strengthens the outer membrane of liver cells, making them more resistant to toxic damage. It supports liver cell regeneration after injury, and it acts as an antioxidant against the harmful byproducts generated when the liver processes toxic substances. This is pharmacologically documented, not folk medicine. If you want to support the metabolic environment in which your eyes are working, the liver is a legitimate and evidence-supported target. Here is exactly what your complete daily protocol looks like. It takes 3 to 5 minutes total. Start with the full sweep. Slow, wide, maximum range horizontal sweeps with your eyes, going all the way to the outer edge in both directions, without moving your head. Do this for about 60 seconds. Feel the stretch at the outer edges and work through it gradually over days and weeks. Follow that with the vibrational massage. fingertips placed on the bony edges around your eye socket, lightest possible touch on closed eyelids, gentle rapid vibration for 20 to 40 seconds per eye. Then finish with the circular accommodation drill, finger held at the edge of your near focus range, moving slowly in circles while you work to maintain clarity, reversing direction, adding distance variation. 3 minutes. Every day, attached to something you already do without thinking. Alongside that daily routine, reduce fried and heavily processed food from your diet. Get your vitamin D level checked and correct it if it is low. Consider milk thistle if liver support seems relevant to your situation. And take an honest look at your stress levels, because chronic stress drives systemic inflammation that affects every organ in your body, including your eyes. Your vision is not simply something that happens to you as you age. It is something you can actively influence every single day with the right knowledge and 3 minutes of consistent effort. The appointment that never gave you this information was not designed to. Prevention does not show up on a billing statement, but it shows up in your life, in whether you can read clearly, drive safely, and stay sharp well into your later years. Start today.